Hi everyone, welcome back to the Old Warlock. I'm Alex.
I'm Jim.
And today we're going to be talking about one of our favorite subjects.
Thieves.
Thieves! And more specifically, Thieves Tools. Thieves Tools have always been... Thieves Tools have always been kind of an ambiguous thing in Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, first edition that we played. Like, you imagine there's kind of some lockpicks in there, but other than that, none of us, hopefully being professional thieves, we aren't exactly sure what the Thieves Tool kit consists of. So we found today in
White Dwarf Magazine. One of my favorites, as you know.
Yes, we talk about it a lot. Kind of their breakdown of what is included in a Thieves Kits and Tools kit.
Thieves Kits and Tools?
Thieves Tools. And some things that they think you might need depending on the type of thievery you're going to be doing. So we're going to go through what they wrote about in Thieves Tools, and we're going to talk to you guys about it. Let's get started.
You're having language problems today, aren't you? I'm just saying. I'm still looking for a new co-host, just so you know. So this is, as we've mentioned before, White Dwarf Magazine, which came out in the 1980s, is one of my favorite magazines, my favorite RPG magazines of all time. There are just so many different creative things in there, and it covers the whole spectrum of role-playing games, questions, answers, ideas. It's just a fantastic magazine.
A little bit of everything sprinkled in there.
In the Best of White Dwarf articles, Volume 3, it came out in 1986. It was a compilation of things that had come out prior. There's a really interesting article called Stop Thief. And okay, there's a really interesting article called Stop Thief, The Thieves Toolkit in D&D by Marcus Rowland. And it addresses some things that really are not addressed at all in AD&D, the AD&D manuals, other than in kind of a very cursory way.
Yeah.
And so let's just read through some of this to give you an idea of where this is coming from. Now, generally, we often talk about how we don't go in for certain details in D&D if it slows the game down.
Yes, or if it doesn't add to the story that we're trying to tell in any capacity.
Right. But I think there's a lot of detail in this Thieves Toolkit article.
Yes.
But these are the kinds of details that we would end up actually using because, for one thing, it helps you to understand that the Thieves Toolkit is not just a little thing this big in a zippered pouch that has some pry bars and some tiny pry bars and lockpick sets or lockpicks. It goes into all of the things that a truly professional thief would have to have with them in order to overcome any obstacle during the course of a robbery or whatever.
Not just to open a door.
Right. So, or open a chest
or whatever,
right. So these are actually things that I think, well, this level of detail is going to change the way the thief has to operate in terms of moving through a town or going through a dungeon or whatever, because there are a lot of things that according to this article, and it seems to strike fairly true for me, being the thief that I am. There are a lot of things in here that I think a thief in D&D would have to have with them, which opens up a lot of opportunity for a creative dungeon master to, number one, cause problems for the thief if they don't deal with their tools correctly, but it also allows that same dungeon master to create even adventures off of the tools that the thief would end up having to have with them if they were to pull off a robbery or a burglary successfully. Let's go down this, and I will see if I can get a screenshot of this and put it up so that you guys can see it as well. But the article starts off with, when you consider the huge range of tasks performed by a typical AD&D thief, it seems surprising how little attention has been paid to the tools of their trade. I agree with this completely in terms of the AD&D game. The player's handbook only mentions the kit, giving its price as 30 gold pieces, but no data on weight or encumbrance. Always been a problem for me. But I never really, I'm just as guilty as the folks at TSR. I never really went into it too deeply to try and expand that. In the following list, items are listed by name, by their weight in gold pieces, their size in inches, and by the cost of a replacement. A few tools can be used as weapons. So, let's go here and start off with table number 1, the standard Thieves toolkit. Some things that you might expect to have: a set of lockpicks. We got into picking locks
We're not very good
a while ago, but we can open padlocks, things like that.
It's not that tough.
It really isn't if you have the right tools. That's as far as we ever went, though, in terms of a Thieves toolkit. And you can have your lockpick set. It can be in a little zippered bag about yay big.
Yeah.
But let's expand on that. Standard Thieves toolkit, set of lockpicks, 12 in a leather case. I'm familiar with that size 6x4x1. That's about what we've been looking at, yeah. But then they also talk about, okay, you need to have some sort of a claw nail extractor, like a pry hammer, hammer with a pry bar on the back, or an claw extractor on the back.
Because it might be easier to just take the thing apart.
Exactly.
You're trying to get into.
They also, and that they list as 18 inches long by 2 inches. So yeah, you've got your hammer, basically a claw hammer, about yay big. You have a pry bar, or which can also function as a large screwdriver. I've seen some pry bars that are about yay big, but they do give you really good leverage on getting hinges off doors, things like that. Screwdrivers. If your campaign is one that runs with screws,
if they exist.
If they exist, they might not. In my campaign, they do not exist. Nails are all hammered nails. They're square-headed nails. So screws, no. But if your campaign does have them, thieves are going to need a screwdriver. There are chisels. I think that's going to be a very important part of any Thieves toolkit.
Yep.
A metal saw. Yeah. I can easily see that. A keyhole saw. 150 feet of twine, you bet. I mean, that's standard for pretty much all of my characters.
Any sort of adventuring.
Yeah. But then you're going to need a carrying bag for all of these things. You're probably going to want to have these things on a belt. So you're going to have a belt with belt loops to have, say, your pry bar and your hammer, your claw hammer. So that's really what they have just for the standard Thieves toolkit. And so I'm kind of seeing that as being that you spend that 30 gold pieces for...
That's what you get.
Yeah, for your standard Thieves toolkit, that's all your stuff.
So if you're, breaking into a house, you're pretty good to go. So very basic, run-of-the-mill stuff without any special preparation.
Right. Now, with this, one of the things that I've never really taken into account is that there's a lot of stuff here. And it's going to make noise. If you just toss it into a bag, it's going to clink, it's going to clank. If you bump into something, it's going to make a noise, which is going to be a problem for the thief. So they're going to have to be more creative in how they transport these things. So they have to individually wrap everything in leather before they put it in the bag. This is what I'm talking, and this is what I was thinking of when I mentioned the Dungeon Master can turn this into detail and immersion in an adventure.
Yeah.
Your thief is going to have to think ahead in order to keep these things from precluding any of his other thieving abilities, such as moving silently, hiding in shadows, and so on.
Yeah.
They list in here, this article goes on, the standard toolkit is fairly heavy at over 12 pounds and would be a fairly awkward load if improperly stowed. I agree with that.
Yeah.
And if you're making your way through a dungeon or you're going through the merchant's house and you're trying to get into the locked doors, you're going to have to stop, put down your carrying case, if you will, and unpack things carefully and quietly in order to get to the tools that you need. Or you're going to have to put those tools in the proper way before you go into your target.
Maybe you have to know where you're going and the order in which things will be happening beforehand.
And tell that to the Dungeon Master so that you have your plan. And that's what we're all about, is it's all about the plan.
Yeah.
Typical packing would be to put the lockpicks, a small screwdriver, and pliers in a belt pouch. Okay. Put the claw hammer in a loop and possibly the pry bar, attach that to the belt, to your belt. Keep everything else in the bag until needed. So they give you some ideas to start with, but I think that that's really wide open for interpretation.
Yeah.
A lot of thieves will need additional equipment, most of it, lanterns, daggers, etc., already listed in the player's handbook. However, some special assignments will need unusual tools and devices available in any larger town or city. This next table is split into sections representing some of the traditional thieves' activities, but should not be considered absolute. Some tools might be used for several purposes, but are only listed once. So, Table 2, Specialized Thieves' Tools. Excuse me. Okay, so they talk about things you might need for a burglary. Crowbar. Yeah.
Big one,
yeah,
not a small one.
Yeah, not those little pry bar. I'm talking about a crowbar with curved end and a slotted, not a slotted end, but a
notched.
Well, the notched end on one end, and then something that you can slide into
like
more defined. There you go, tapered end. Long lock picks in case you need to get into very deep locks. If you use keys in your world, key blanks, so that if you can get an impression of a key, then you have the key blank and you can actually make a key to get into something if you manage to get a hold of the key in the course of preparing for your robbery. Beeswax for making key impressions. And then, of course, climbing spikes, which I think is something that my thieves need to have climbing spikes, and they also need to have things that will allow them to use their hands to climb in some situations, because it's not just climbing that sheer wall with your booted feet and your fingernails. You need some assistance with a lot of those things. I'm not saying that I don't allow thieves to do any of that kind of thing without the proper tools.
But it's difficult.
But it can be. And it all depends on the surface that you're trying to climb.
Yeah.
A good thief will be prepared.
Indeed.
Trap detection and removal. They list here a sheet of mica to slip latches. So in order to slide through and, yeah, exactly. A hand drill, yeah. Braces and bits, so things to actually different types of bits that you can put into your hand drill in order to drill a hole of whatever size you need to.
Yeah.
Probes, which I think is a really good idea. Thin needles and hooks to see what might be inside of what kind of a trap might exist somewhere, or what might be inside of a lock.
Yeah.
Inspection mirrors. Great idea, which I've never really thought of that much.
Like dentist mirrors, kind of.
Right.
Yeah.
Or even longer ones that are on some sort of a rod that you could slide under a door to see what's on the other side of it, things like that.
Yeah.
Lubricating oil is extremely important.
That's interesting.
A listening horn, the thing you stick in your ear so that you can hear what's going on the other side of a door. So those are all things that you need to kind of keep in mind as a thief. I might need some of these things, but again, how do you buy it, and how do you stow it, and how do you carry it?
Yeah.
Some really interesting things regarding pickpocketing. They mention a gaff, which is a bag with a false bottom on it. So if you've stolen something, you have a place to hide
empty.
your.
What are you talking about?
I don't have anything in this bag. Scissors, yeah, to cut to cut the straps of bags to take them away from people. Hooked wires for fishing things out of people's pockets. And I love this, a razor-edged ring to slit pockets with. So I think that's a really cool idea.
Yeah, very creative.
Then, again, I have to admit, in all the years that I have played, I've really not gotten into this as part of the Thieves toolkit. Mm-hmm. We've used these things, but not had them specifically in a Thieves toolkit.
Yeah.
Things such as this is for scouting, hiding, and getaways. Lamp black for putting on your hands and face. So a pot of that. I never really thought, we've always just been, I'm going to take some soot and smear it on me from the fire. No, actually having some lamp black in a pot with you.
To specifically camouflage yourself.
I think it's a great idea. Over socks. Things to put over your boots so that you move more quietly.
Yeah.
Never really thought of that either. Love this idea, and we've seen people do this in an ad hoc way, but never in an organized way. And this is 24 marbles to throw under people's feet to make them slip and fall.
Yeah.
Caltrops, yeah, that's a kind of a standard thing. But also a bag of tacks, so that you toss a huge bag of tacks out into the bedroom of somebody. They climb out of bed in their bare feet. You've got an advantage in that. So. These are I thought these were really interesting ideas. it goes on to say, in most circumstances, the possession or lack of a single item of equipment will make little difference to a thief's performance. But several items would have to be lost from the standard kit before the thief could not deal with a normal lock, for example. So, a good thief is going to be able to improvise. But I just thought that overall, this is a really neat article addressing things that we've thought about and talked about, but never really gotten down to, wait for it, brass tacks in terms of dealing with it.
Because, looking at the Thieves Picks and Tools, like, when you hear that, it's essentially just your lockpick set. And, it's a very important aspect of this, but depending on what you're doing, the thief is a very wide-ranging class in terms of the things that they're kind of supposed to be prepared to do.
Right.
So, being able to personalize your character that much more and give them the specific equipment they need to, I don't know, maybe they're just robbing wagons on the highways or something like that, or they're breaking into a castle, or they're diving somewhere underwater and stealing things from some chest. Like, different circumstances will require different equipment, just like any other character. So equipping them properly is, from a player's perspective, in my eyes, part of the fun.
Exactly. It's part of the fun, right. I agree.
You get to try and think ahead of, okay, well, I have to get over the outer wall, so I need the crampons on my boots, and then I'm gonna, pick this lock, and then I've got to get past the guards this way, but there's going to be lanterns all over the place, so I need the lamp black and things like that. So thinking that out ahead of time just adds to the experience for me.
Exactly. No, I couldn't agree more. I think that's exactly what this is. When I mentioned earlier that sometimes detail bogs a game down, but in this case it actually elevates the game, that's exactly what I'm talking about. It's all about making that fun, having the fun to make the plan to overcome the obstacles that the Dungeon Master has set up in front of you. And for the DM, which I very often play, setting up those obstacles and seeing them overcome by a creative player is extremely fun for me.
Yeah.
But just a lot of really good opportunities. I in my mind, I also envision, based on this, you have a thief that excels in trap removal. Maybe that's their thing, and they're not very good at going out there and picking the pockets, but they've got a toolkit that specializes in trap removal. You might have to hire them to get through something in a temple because it's really, really difficult, and your average thief can't do that, or is not as good at that. And so, as the Dungeon Master, you have subclasses for the thieves that they can specialize in, and they'll get a bonus on that particular the tasks that are particular to that subclass.
Yes.
Anyway, Best of White Dwarf articles, Volume 3, 1986. I'm not exactly sure when this article came out. I want to say it was probably 1982. But back in the day, a lot of cool articles in White Dwarf Magazine. Check it out. Again, I'll try and throw these tables up on the screen so that you can take a screenshot or something if you want to try and implement some of this. And circling back to kind of the beginning of the episode, if you guys want to get a feel for what this kind of stuff is, you can get lockpick sets on Amazon for very, very cheap. And we are not condoning that you do anything illegal when you get them, but they come with sample locks a lot of the time, and you can just buy padlocks. And it's not that tough for the things that are pretty... that aren't meant to keep people from doing this. They're just kind of basic locks. It's not that tough to do. Yeah,
so and it's kind of a fun insight into how locks work, how the picking system works, gives you kind of a comparison of how long it would take for characters to do these things. So it's just kind of fun too. Yeah, and before we got into the lockpick sets, I always assumed it was like it is on TV shows, where the guy just gets out a thing and goes like this, and got it. It's not quite that way. It can take a long time.
And it's a two-handed job, too, in a lot of ways. Sometimes you can do it with one, but for the most part, it's a two-handed job. But it's fun. And if you play Thieves, I highly recommend getting one of these beginner lockpick sets off of Amazon. Yes. Do it. Anyway, that's all we've got for this particular video. Please, if you are interested in the things that we create, I can understand why you wouldn't want to support us. Well, because if you are interested in supporting the channel, please visit our Patreon. We have content there that is only available on Patreon. Yes. And it helps, anything that we make off there helps us to continue the channel and hopefully expand it. Yes, absolutely. To those of you who are our Patreon patrons, we thank you all so very much. It means the absolute world to us. It does. And if you don't subscribe to Patreon, that's cool. We're going to keep putting out videos. So look out for the next one, I guess. Yeah. Thanks for watching. Wise words. Namaste. I'm Jim.
I'm Alex.
Keep your sword on free.
Bye-bye.